Welcome to the Birth Protectors Podcast. I'm Rahelios.
And I'm Celeste, and we are bringing in a father's perspective on home birth.
Today we're going to talk about cutting the cord, and yes, literally cutting the umbilical cord. There's so many important things attached to this, and Celeste has done lots of research and things to back up the things that we've noticed ourselves. There's even so much common sense, just nature's design, and it's actually really profound. It's not at all a trivial thing. It's really important. In fact, it's one of the most important reasons to have birth in a truly natural way, to have birth in the way that you would desire, where you're in control, and which generally, most of the time, almost all the time, means necessarily that you have birth at home, or at least an environment where you are 100% in control, which is never a hospital or birthing center or anything of that nature. So the cord, your baby's cord, obviously, as we know, that's its lifeblood. To put it simply, that's what's nurturing baby while it's in the womb, and that is where the baby is breathing. This is why, for instance, having birth underwater has become popular, and Celeste and I have some really mixed feelings about specifically birthing in the water, although Celeste is laboring in the water, but that's a different subject. We're not talking about that today. But the baby, why can the baby be underwater and be just fine, is because they're not breathing. They're attached. They're getting their oxygen through the cord, obviously. That may not be obvious to everyone, so I apologize for being presumptuous, but the baby is getting all its nourishment from the cord. This is also why when babies are very, very, very often born with the cord around their neck. We've had several of our babies born with the cord around their neck. We've had a lot of things. We've had 10 babies at home, and it's not an emergency. My own little sister, ended up, and this is super common, even still today. She ended up being birthed cesarean, and it was a botched cesarean because it was a, quote, emergency cesarean, as they realized, oh no, the baby has its cord around the neck. Oh, this is a emergency. We've got to do cesarean. And it was totally botched. The baby, my sister almost bled to death. My mom almost bled to death. They both had to receive transfusions, and because it was a botched surgery. Of course, they never say that. They always act like, oh no, it was, we saved your life. And it's insane because the whole, picture that people get in their mind is, oh no, the baby's being strangled. So we need to do the cesarean birth. Your baby's not being strangled. Your baby's not even breathing. As long as the cord is intact and it's not tied in a knot so tight that it's literally stopping the blood flow. It's not tied around the neck so tight that it's stopping the blood flow. And it never is. It never is. You might think, well, that happens. No, it doesn't. If it does, that's the rarest of weirdest circumstance.
The cord has a substance in it that keeps it from compressing completely, even if it is tied in a knot.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, so you almost can't tie it in a knot, right? And because it's really thick and pulsating too. It's not like just a limp rope that you could grab and put in a knot and tie it. If you tried to tie it in a knot, it would just come apart.
Difficult. I mean, knots do happen, but yeah, it's rare for it to cause a problem.
Yes, because even when there are knots, and we know some people who gave birth, the cord was in a knot, and it's not even a problem because the blood is still flowing through there because the knot isn't so tight that it's cutting off the blood flow. If that were to happen, the baby would die. So whether you believe in creation or evolution, either way, the design is such that that's not going to happen. 999,000 times out of a million, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But ironically, the cord around the neck is something that they use as an excuse to do cesareans, or, it's an emergency, or, I had to do this or I had to do that because the cord was around my baby's neck. They almost died. It's just a story that people keep repeating over and over again. And it's a myth.
Yes, literally. And the fact that people are repeating it over and over again, well, it's not because people are making this up. It's because they're being told this by medical professionals over and over and over again. Again, Celeste and I only know a handful of people in this world comparatively to all 8 billion of us that are giving birth. And we've heard this story so many times. So many times. Because so many women are told, oh, you had to have a cesarean. Your cord is wrapped around the neck. Your baby would have died if we didn't do this. Or they're telling them before, we're going to have to do a cesarean. Your baby can't be born naturally. Your baby's going to die.
Yeah. Variations of that same story.
So, okay, that's just one part, though, of this cord situation. And again, that's not even the most important part at all. Here's the number one most important thing, and this is, like I said, it's so foundational. It's almost all by itself a reason to have your baby in a situation where you are in control. And that is because that blood that's in the placenta and that's in the cord is designed, it's your baby's blood. It's literally their blood. And let me just draw a contrast to you. This is a huge thing, so we'll try, hopefully not forget to really go deep into what that means. So in your typical medical birth, this is not even emergency birth. These are even births that they say everything went perfect. Okay? Nothing went wrong. No interventions, they say. There's so many interventions in a hospital birth that they don't even call interventions. But okay, so your baby comes out, and typically, instantly, the first thing they do, the baby comes out, boom, they cut the cord. Well, first they clamp it.
And clamping it is the same thing. Basically, as soon as it's clamped, there's no more blood flow.
Yeah, right. So once they clamp it, it doesn't matter. Oh, some people are like, oh, well, they're delaying cord cutting now. But they clamp it right away. Why do they clamp it? Because if you cut that thing, it starts spurting blood like as though you cut a finger off. Because you literally did, or worse, actually much worse. But okay, so they clamp it and then they cut it right away, because it's an emergency. It's baffling that they do this. There's a lot of reasons though, and some of them are very dark actually.
But it's how they're trained, and mostly they don't question it.
Right. Your doctor isn't the one with the dark, nefarious purposes, which I haven't even explained yet, but we'll get into that. The doctor's just doing what they were trained to do in medical school, and they're actually told a number of reasons why it's important that you cut the cord so immediately, and they're all absolute baloney. So they cut the cord, and then your baby hand you your baby, or don't hand you your baby, whatever else. They do a bunch of other tests and
take it away,
yada yada. a bunch of baloney. And the fact is, your baby has now been deprived of a huge volume of blood,
up to a third of the volume.
A third of the volume of blood. Now, you as an adult, if you lose a third of your blood, like we're talking serious medical emergency, life-threatening, you're probably going to die. You might not live through it. Maybe you probably already died at that point. This is not some small thing. You can't just lose a third of your blood volume and be okay.
No,
That
that's a massive trauma right there.
yeah, it's massive, massive trauma. It's never okay. All right, so just if you start thinking about this a little bit, it starts to really should raise some eyebrows. Contrast at home. And not just because it's at home, it's because contrast a natural childbirth. I'd like to, because that's really what we're talking about here.
Most people use that term for a hospital birth.
Right. The term natural has been stolen. Okay? There's what they call natural childbirth in the hospital, what they call all natural food in the grocery store, what they call natural ingredients, all natural ingredients. That term has been stolen. That's not at all natural. There's nothing that happens in a hospital that's natural, other than the baby comes out. But okay. Regardless of that, when you have your baby at home, or here's how it could look. Here's how all of our births have looked. The baby comes out, right, and the cord is there, and it's thick. And the cord is still attached to placenta. Oftentimes, your placenta is still attached inside your uterus. The placenta is still supplying blood to your baby. It's your baby's blood. That's not your blood. It in fact doesn't even mix with your blood. As the mom's blood and the baby's blood never mix. Isn't that true?
Yeah, although some of their cells actually do, but
okay, but we're talking. Sure, yeah. It's not like it's your blood that's getting pumped through the uterus into the baby.
It's kept very separate. There's right. The maternal side and the baby side of the placenta.
Yes. So that's my point. It's your baby's blood. It's not your blood. So it's going through the placenta. Just in case you didn't know that. And what happens if you don't do anything, and you don't have to do anything? Here's the point. The big numbers, like how long should we wait, and how long yada. There's no amount of time that's too long to wait. Like we're talking, you could wait 10 minutes, you could wait an hour, you could wait 10 hours, you could wait 10 days, and that's not even exaggerating.
Yeah, people do that, and that's lotus birth, and the only downside to that is, the placenta starts to decompose, and you have to figure out ways to combat that.
Right, which if you want to do that, I don't know why people...
But anyway,
yeah, but the point is that nothing bad happens from waiting, because what happens is if you don't do anything, you don't cut the cord, eventually the placenta separates from the uterus in its own time. That also is not an emergency. It doesn't have to happen in the next 2 minutes like they pretend it does in a hospital. It could be minutes later. It can even be hours later, and it's fine. We've had that too. We'll talk about that in time. We've got lots of experiences to share. But the placenta eventually separates, and the blood, all of it, not some of it, not most of it, all of it transfers into your baby where it belongs. That's where it was meant to go. It's there to nourish your baby. It's your baby's blood, and it all ends up in the baby's body. How do you know when that's happened? The cord that used to be at first when your baby's born, that cord is thick and firm because it's full of blood. It's plain and simple. It's like a hydraulic hose, and it's under high pressure because it's filled with that blood. And all of that blood goes into your baby, and that once thick, firm cord turns limp as a spaghetti noodle. Like a limp, flat, white. It had color before.
It turns completely white.
Yeah, it was multicolored because there's blood in it, and some is red, some is blue, depending on if it's a vein or.
And it also turns cold.
Yeah, it gets cold and limp, and you can cut it anywhere along the cord. You could leave it a foot long from your baby, or you could cut it closer. It makes sense to leave it a little longer than they normally do, just to keep bacteria and stuff out of there. To protect your baby, that opening, but the body starts healing it right away, and you cut it. You don't have to even clamp anything. You don't have to tie it. You don't actually have to do anything, because when you cut it, literally not a drop of blood will come out, because there is no blood left in the cord at that point.
Yeah, it has its own clotting, clamping process that happens.
Yep. So Celeste and I, for instance, what we have done, how do we determine when it's time to cut the cord? We're definitely not looking at the clock or anything like that. It's so simple. It's ready when it's ready. How do you know when it's ready? Because the cord is white and limp and there's no blood left in it. That's how you know. Once that's happened, it's you can go ahead and cut the cord. The placenta is no longer providing your baby with any nutrients anymore because there's no more blood flow. So there's no reason to keep the placenta attached unless you want to for some reason. That's whatever. but that's how you know. And that's how simple it is. And there's no blood flying everywhere. There's no cord clamping. And all the blood goes into your baby. Now, again, think about, just imagine how important that is without going into all the research and everything, just using common sense. If it's a third of the volume of what's in your baby already, 2/3 was there and 1/3's in the placenta, and then that last third ends up in your baby. Don't you think that could be significant?
Definitely.
Well, yes, we're here to tell you definitely, again, because if you lose a third of your blood, it's a medical emergency. And in fact, it is. When every baby that's born in the hospital, right off the bat, usually they've already undergone multiple traumas by the time the cord cutting happens. Multiple life-changing, horrible, psychology-altering traumas already have happened to mom and the baby in a general normal hospital birth. This is not like crazy hospital birth. This is every hospital birth. But then they cut the cord. Holy cow. Like, I can just imagine the baby even feels this massive, like, I don't know. I don't know. This is just totally extrapolation in my head, but I can imagine, like, you would feel this huge rush of, like, something horrible just happened, because you're still, like, there's this organ that's, like, pumping. It's like your heart pumping the blood into your body, and then they just cut it.
They're instantly cut off from their nutrition and oxygen supply. Like,
yeah. Instantly, and because that's still supplying them at that point.
So, they probably feel like they're suffocating, because the lungs don't start functioning instantly. It's a like a process. They take in air, and the lungs have to inflate, and the design is perfect to allow the baby to transition right after birth to breathing air. Like, it's just designed perfectly. The amount of time that the cord takes to finish giving the baby blood and oxygen is about how long it takes for them to breathe on their own and get the hang of that. It's like, it's this process of transitioning, and it's designed to help your baby through that process.
Yeah, and the design it wasn't designed to be traumatic at all.
Yeah, it's seamless. It, like, just flows perfectly. And there's even been accounts where if the baby is having difficulty breathing for some reason, the body's intelligence knows to keep supplying blood through the cord. And I've read about instances where the placenta kept functioning for like an hour while the baby was, like, transitioning because it was having difficulty breathing for some reason.
Wow. Yeah. So isn't that amazing? And Celeste just said the body's intelligence. I really love that term because that's a real thing. And so, in a situation like that, somehow the design, the evolution, the creation, whatever, the design is such that your body knows what to do innately. And in the situation, the baby's having trouble breathing, so your body says, well, hold on, we're not going to, detach the placenta yet because it's still needed. Like, somehow your body knows that it's okay, let's just wait, and it'll wait.
Yeah, the placenta belongs to the baby. That is the baby's organ, like, and it stops being needed at some point, but until then, the baby knows how long it needs the placenta to function.
Totally. Totally. And it's all this stuff happens by the body, your body's timing, your baby's timing, not your timing, not some medical book's timing, definitely not we need this room to be ready in 30 minutes timing for the next patient. you know there's a timing to this, and the range of timing that is right in the typical medical literature. They have protocol where there's this narrow range that they consider good, and if you're in that range, usually it is good, but it's a very narrow range, and if it goes outside of that, protocol dictates that as a medical professional that you have to take action, and that protocol does apply to any licensed midwife or any licensed medical professional for their protection, for your protection, for the baby's protection. They are not allowed to not react whenever anything goes outside of certain protocol. And again, that protocol is very narrow. And in reality, the range of timing of, for instance, when the placenta separates can be huge. It can all be just fine. People get so stressed out about, oh no, I'm going to have a retained placenta. And those kind of things don't even generally happen unless there's previous traumas that cause other injuries, that cause other things. And all of that occurs in a standard medical birth. Will not occur if you let nature take its course, the natural design take its course. Let your body's intelligence determine when things should happen, when contractions should occur, when you should push. There's never a time when it's like, oh, should I push now? That's like so insane.
Yeah.
And when the baby comes out, when you're dilated enough, like, oh, okay, I'm not dilated enough yet. Don't push yet. Okay, now you're dilated enough. Okay, start pushing. That is all so bizarre.
Nonsensical.
Absolutely. But if I'm talking to anybody who's experienced medical birth, or if you're a medical professional, you're probably thinking I'm completely stupid at this point, because you're like, what? That's what we do. That's how it's done. Are you a retard? You're an idiot? Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not a medically trained professional. Let's get that clear. I'll hopefully remember to say that in every episode. I'm not a professional in the medical field in any way whatsoever. Neither is Celeste. We've had 10 childbirths at home. All of them were unattended by any medical professionals. Not a single time did we have a medical professional present.
Just the two of us and maybe a few family or friends.
Yes. So we're speaking from our experience of having 10 births, which were all very diverse in how they came out, by the way. They weren't all even close to being the same or even similar in a lot of ways. But so we've got that experience. Plus, we have a lot of friends who've had similar experiences that we talked to. Celeste especially has done lots of reading and talked to other moms and midwives and doulas, and she's
heard a lot of birth stories.
Yeah, so that's the only place we're coming from. Okay, just so you know, it's just those kinds of experiences that we're relating. So we have no medical training. So if that should matter to you, and so you're perfectly valid taking what we say with a grain of salt. But this is our experience. So that range of where things can happen and still be okay is really wide, because it has been with us and it has been with other people we know. And it's because of your body's intelligence often that it'll delay certain things happening, like to detach the placenta or speed it up.
Oh yeah, that's true. If the cord is wrapped around the baby and like too many times, and like placenta can sometimes just detach with the baby and be born, and you know it's not ideal, but that's what is needed in that scenario situation.
Right, right. One of our babies, we won't get into the whole story here. It's a really cool story, pretty dramatic. But her cord was so short. I'm talking 4 to 6 inches, like super, super short. There's no way she could be born without the placenta detaching. And so the placenta actually, in order for her to be born, the placenta had to detach, and she had to actually be without oxygen for during that birth process because there was no other way she was coming out. And if we would have been in the hospital in that situation, 100% that would have been a cesarean delivery, or it would have been a disaster where the baby ended up being killed because they would have been trying to yank her out with forceps because they didn't realize what was going on, or some crazy thing. There probably would have been hemorrhaging if because they would have yanked on the baby and the placenta was still attached, and it would have been just another horribly traumatic experience where maybe the baby was born and scarred for life, and mom is scarred for life, or more likely the baby was even dead in that situation. And in our situation, the Sarah, she's beautiful, she's perfect. So beyond the scariness of her birth experience, which again we'll talk lots more about later, it was another perfect birth, and she was totally healthy, and mom was totally healthy. Nobody was traumatized. And yet it was so far outside of what the medical system would ever allow. So far outside.
Yeah.
If they would have seen that her cord was that short in an ultrasound, for instance, or something like that, which that kind of tells you, and you might think we're crazy, and maybe we are, but no, we didn't have ultrasounds or anything like that with most of our children. We did for the first couple, but if that would have been discovered in some kind of prenatal care, they absolutely, without question, would have told Celeste, there's no way you can have this baby at home. It's impossible. They would have said, it's not possible. If you try and have this baby at home, you or the baby will die. Am I wrong?
Probably not. I mean, yeah, schedule the C-section would be the standard protocol.
Absolutely. There's just because that's like it can't happen. Look, there's physics involved. Cord's not long enough. Baby can't be born. Placenta's still attached. No matter what you do, there's going to be a problem here. And okay, and so that was my original point, though, is that the body's natural intelligence somehow knowing through that communication between the mom and the baby, and the mom's body, the baby's body, and this whole just natural design that's involved there, knows that communication is like, okay, here's what we got to do. This is an unusual situation, but it'll be all right. Everyone just, hang on, hold your breath for a minute. I know this part's gonna suck, but you're gonna have to hold your breath. Okay, here we go. And placenta separated. Celeste did not hemorrhage or go into some. It wasn't like a trauma. It wasn't something that I did, like, oh, I'm gonna separate the placenta now. It's just something that the body knew it had to do. Celeste's body and Sarah's body knew they had to do. Placenta was separated. Sarah could be born. I had to resuscitate her a little bit after she came out because she wasn't breathing. She didn't take breaths right away for like a few minutes. So if I didn't know infant CPR, by the way, she probably would have died. That was one situation where I had to step in and take action. I had to give her CPR for 8 full minutes, which we know because Celeste was actually videotaping this birth.
I wasn't videoing.
Well, no.
There is a video.
Yeah, we had a recorder running. And so you go back and it's like, holy cow. And 8 minutes is a long time to give CPR, and Sarah wasn't breathing, and she felt like she was a totally unresponsive baby in my arms. But I first heard her heart and it was beating. So I knew she wasn't dead. Her heart was beating. So I didn't do chest compressions because her heart was beating. She just wasn't breathing. And so I breathed for her, and then finally she started breathing on her own. So dads, yeah, you should at least learn infant CPR for one thing.
Yeah. Anybody having children should probably know CPR.
Yeah,
I
mom
mean,
too. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Because things happen. You know, gosh, heaven forbid one of your children ever choke or something like that. You need to know what to do. And there's certain situations in childbirth. It's not always without challenges, but those challenges can be overcome, and you don't usually need to be a surgeon or anything like that in order to deal with it. Now, of course, there are rare circumstances where things just go totally haywire for some reason. And thank goodness for you medical professionals out there who can actually facilitate, who can fix it, who can facilitate a situation where now you get to live where before in a natural situation you definitely would have died. That happens. I mean, I'm alive because of that. I was in a car accident and a couple of my fingers were basically severed from my body. My hand was crushed and I was bleeding like crazy. And if it wasn't for medical science and surgical professionals to go in and sew my hand back together, I definitely wouldn't be a musician anymore, or I wouldn't be able to play the guitar anymore, or the saxophone, and I might not even be alive. And instead, they put me back together, and I'm like so grateful for that. And that things like that can happen in a childbirth situation, although that's very rare. Which brings up another thing that I guess that could be appropriate to add here just shortly. Because childbirth is not a medical emergency. 99.9999% of the time, it's not. Every time that it's happening in a natural scenario, it is not a medical emergency at all. And it's treated as such. But childbirth is just a natural thing that happens. So it's totally inappropriate for it to be treated as a medical emergency. And for people to feel like, oh, my body's broken, childbirth is somehow broken, the human body is somehow dysfunctional, and the only way we can be born is through the glory and amazingness of medical science intervening in a broken process. That paradigm needs to go. It just needs to go, because women and children, babies, are being harmed by the thousands every day, and this harm is not slight and it's not insignificant. Because, like I said, even, which brings me back around, thankfully, to the cord, even in a situation where, in a medical birth where they say everything went perfectly, no, you are being handed a baby that's been severely traumatized. That's why they get jaundice and all kinds of other horrible things, psychological and physical, very much physical, and the combination of those two that stem from just the fact that the cord was cut and your baby was deprived of the blood.
Another very important aspect that should be mentioned is the stem cells that
Yes.
that the baby receives at the moment of birth, or I mean just after birth. They play a very specific role to help the baby recover from the birth process, and any, like, their head has to mold, and they might have bruising, and the birth process isn't exactly easy.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
For mom and baby.
And the stem cells from the cord go in and help the baby recover from the birth process. And that is a very, very valuable role. And the medical professionals are taking those stem cells to use them for other purposes when they clamp the cord, and they take that cord blood and they take the blood from the placenta because those stem cells are very, very valuable, but your baby deserves them.
Right. They belong to your baby. And so, this isn't about the ethics of should stem cell research be alive or allowed or whatever. And science should be able to progress, and amazing things are discovered through research. But your baby needs its own stem cells. And it is not up to you to decide for your baby, oh, I'm going to donate your stem cells to science, baby, because, I'm your mom and I'm just going to do that. And nobody even thinks that, but that's literally what you're doing. And that's one of the main reasons why, no, they're not going to allow that baby to go into your blood, into that blood to go into the baby, because there is a whole industry around collecting that blood and the stem cells, and your doctor has nothing to do with it. And like I said, your doctor doesn't even probably know what's going on. But it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they
have a lot to lose if they just let babies have all their blood.
Yeah.
So
to the tune of billions.
There's a monetary incentive there.
And
Oh, so the other aspect to that is this whole movement that towards delayed cord clamping. Because, people are starting to realize, the babies do better if they, receive their blood and stuff. And so they start, they've created this whole delayed cord clamping thing where, like, they actually got one of the organizations or whatever to recommend that delayed cord clamping. But this is a scam. It's very much a scam, because what they're calling delayed cord clamping is 30 to 60 seconds.
Come on. Yeah, see, and that's delay. Oh, I waited 30 seconds. We delayed. Like, that's how immediate they generate. They want to keep every drop of that blood for themselves.
Yeah, and so they're reluctantly, okay, well, we're going to give these parents what they want, these mothers that are saying, I want my baby to have their blood. I want to do delayed cord clamping. And these mothers are unknowingly, they think they're doing what's best for their baby when they go in and request delayed cord clamping. And they think they're getting it.
Yeah, and so they're not getting it at all. But the crazy thing is that they're even allowing them that 30 seconds to a minute, only because why I jumped in is because there's research coming out that proves this. This isn't just an opinion. There's so much research that now they're backed against the wall, and they're like, okay. We admit, it really does make a huge difference if your baby has their blood that they're supposed to have. So we're okay. You're right. We didn't realize. Sorry. Now we know. Okay, we'll give you your blood. We're gonna make it protocol now. We're gonna make sure every doctor delays clamping the cord, because we now admit and realize that it is in your best interest. So we'll do that for you.
We'll recommend delayed cord clamping.
and you have to ask for it, by the way. They're not just going to give it to you. I don't know. Maybe they do now. Maybe they automatically wait 30 seconds now. I don't know.
Maybe some of them do. But yeah, usually you have to request it, and they're very reluctant to do more than 30 seconds.
Yeah, and
60 seconds, that's pushing it.
And I'm here to tell you, after having 10 of our own children and seeing, other births, 60 seconds ain't nearly enough ever. Never. Not even close.
Yeah.
We're talking more like 5 minutes.
I would say even in those rare cases where the placenta detaches and is born with the baby, the cord is going to keep pumping that blood. Even if the placenta has detached, it's going to keep functioning for longer than 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and that's, suboptimal situation.
Right. Yeah, so this 30 to 60 seconds is literally BS.
Yeah, it's very much a scam.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up, Celeste, because that is a huge point. So, if you listen, someone out there might listen to this and be just like so many other parents are, they go to the hospital and they're like, oh no, well, we got that covered. Our doctors agreed to delayed cord clamping. We'll be good. It's
Yeah.
like, no.
My doctor reassured me that we can do delayed cord clamping, so I feel good.
Or my doctor did do delayed cord clamping.
Yeah.
They tell me, no, they delayed. My baby didn't have to go through that trauma. Sorry, wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
So, and there's so many things.
There's probably so much more we could say about the cord.
Yes, and we will.
I think another aspect to that, leaving that cord intact, is the very important aspect of not separating the mother and baby after birth.
That's huge.
It's like nature designed you to be still connected to your baby because it's important for them to stay, connected to you, touching you. That's what facilitates the hormones to clamp down the uterus and stop the bleeding and prevent hemorrhage, and the oxytocin to make your milk come in, and so many functions.
Right. And the design is such that normally, and when I say normally today, this is totally abnormal. But I say normally, if nature was doing what it was supposed to do, when we have our babies, the baby is never out of contact with mom. Like, your baby's been growing inside of you. Like, that's the only experience it's ever had of this physical world, is being not only attached to you, but inside of you. And then it's supposed to be just fine to just pull it out, separate it, take it away for a while. That is a trauma on the level of, like, and we're talking, this will psychologically affect your baby for life, and that's part of the reason why humanity's all screwed up right now. But I'm going to digress again, so I can stop there. Your baby should never be separated from you. Never. Like, the touch is 100%, like, you're touching your own baby as it's delivered, and then it's immediately you're holding the baby, and immediately you're breastfeeding your baby.
Yeah, it's on your chest. Your baby can feel your heartbeat still. Your baby can regulate its temperature because it feels, the warmth from your skin, and yeah.
And that is what allows the baby to feel okay. Because it's all of a sudden going through the most difficult thing it's ever gone through, and I'm sure it's difficult. And, for the baby, I mean, definitely it's difficult for mom. It's not just a walk in the park, so it's an understatement. But that contact, like, your baby is always assured, can feel that I'm still with mom. Like, things have changed. Something amazing just happened, but mom's still here.
Yeah. And that connection should not be broken until hours, whenever the mother feels ready, like she wants to get up and go to the bathroom or whatever. Like, dad can take over holding the baby at that point. But
yeah, that was always one of my favorites. Like, oh, finally, after all this time of just watching, basically, in terms of I don't get to hold the baby until that moment. That's when I finally, for the first time, besides during the delivery, where it's like, now I just get to hold baby. And that's always been a really special moment. Usually baby's asleep, sleeping peacefully, happily, and then I get to hold her for a while, or him, of course. And the minute they wake up, it's like, back to mama, but
there's bonding there.
Yeah, definitely.
For daddies too.
And they'll wake up and look at me, and they'll be like, "Who's this guy?" But they recognize my voice, of course, somewhat.
Yeah, and it's just so important for the baby to just, everything it is experiencing is familiar, like the smells, the sounds, the touch. That's important.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just having the situation not be traumatic, the opposite of traumatic, is important beyond any words I could come up with. And, that's why we talk about birth protectors. I feel like as a father, that's our main role, is to protect that sanctity of a non-traumatic, of a beautiful experience.
Undisturbed.
Yes, because creating that type of a space is what will create fundamentally healthy human beings rather than instantly, immediately traumatized human beings, which is what we have an entire global population of right now.
Yeah. Because just because you don't recall your own birth,
You
doesn't,
think consciously.
yeah, it's still there. It's written in your cells, and trauma lives in the body, and it's really hard to heal that kind of trauma that you don't remember. And
Yeah, that's a huge thing. So we'll do a
so
whole podcast on
the
that.
argument that, oh, whatever, the baby goes through, it's fine because they're not going to remember it. That's baloney.
Yep.
It affects them on a very deep level.
Yes. 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 That right there is why this is so important to us, and it's objectively just so important. So that's why we're doing, sharing with you. But literally, that's why. And that's probably good for this one.
Mm-hmm.
We've got so many things to talk about. It's a subject that's really near and dear to us, and we hope that somebody listening might have got something out of this. So we'll talk again soon.